aggro in any way, shape, or form, even tempo can still have a shot. Because Tempo Rogue is not so much an aggro deck. It does have more gas now, thanks to things like the Elven Minstrel. So I'm interested to see Brewski's Bane of Priest and what he's going to bring up against that Warlock, if it is control in that spot.
I agree. This is going to be a good one. I'm excited.
Gotcha. So
I actually am really happy that they did different bands too. I think it makes it.
I'm super interested to see where this is going to go. And so with that, we're going to get started here in just a moment. These two competitors are going to start their picks right now. They've made their bands, obviously, and this match will start any moment. And so that's the big question here is what are the choices between specifically those Warlock and Druid decks? And who knows, maybe Brewski is going to pull a fast one on us and bring Big Priest, or maybe he's going to bring one of the two spots of Dragon Priest. That's the thing about Priest. There's so many different versions of Priest, whether it be Rizakus or whether it be Big. Even the Dragon version has two different versions that are inside of it, each one teched for a specific matchup. So it's going to be. I'm really happy that we get to see a Priest. So these two players are gonna battle at some point. I believe they might be battling here right now, but they're going to come up on screen fairly quickly for us.
Patiently waiting.
Patiently waiting.
Always patient.
Steffi, have you ever thought about bringing a different priest? Have you thought about, bringing in, the Spiteful Summoner Dragon Priest? Because that does have really good win rates against the right decks.
It does. I've thought about it. I'd be lying if I say I play a lot of priests, because I truly don't. I've never been a big fan of priest, but I do really like the kind of the dragony, the spell one that's been floating around, because it can really just kind of one up your opponent, and it can get there. But I don't know, Raza Priest I still think is probably the best priest that's out there. So to me, it would just make sense to bring the best one, because it can counter and kind of, hold its own against a lot of variety of decks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing about Rizakus Priest. It's like, it's the patron warrior of the priest decks. It's in the wrong hands, you're gonna have a bad win rate. You're gonna have a bad time. In the right hands, there's gonna be some fun stuff going on there. In the right hands, you can watch. My favorite thing is to watch RDU. If you can watch RDU, that Romanian crazy man, play Rizakus Priest. That guy knows how to tech. He knows how to play those matchups. He knows how to evaluate what his win condition is and can go from one spot to the other. That's what I love about what I love and hate about Rizakus Priest. That's the thing. It's interesting to me. Like, I was working with Doc McButt and we were on the ladder, and we're playing against a Jade Druid that beefed up all of his armor, played all of the Oaken Summons, played everything that you can. And we basically, like, he thought he was out of the blue. He thought he was out of it all, and he had 47 health. And what ended up happening is that we took him down with a 50 damage OTK. That's what that deck can do. That's why Rizakus is still king of the competitive format.
So crazy. It's crazy good. Like, it's silly, but I like how you point out too. Like, if you don't know how to appropriately play it, it can be a really hard deck to, run, because depending on what deck you're playing against, you play completely different. So that's one good thing about it. It's not the easiest to play.
And we are now going to look into this matchup that's going on right now. So what we see here is I see JR Juggernaut starting off with that Tempo Rogue up against what looks to be a complete aggro druid. So was that aggro druid that Brewski brought that ended up being what it was? So it's when you look at what's happening right now, Stephanie, this is going to be a super interesting start already. Druid has the board early. It's turn 4. They've eaten pirates. They've feasted on everything. There's a corridor creeper down there, and all I see is a couple fireflies on JR Juggernaut's side. This is not a good start for Team's Energy, to say the least.
True. Let me hold on. My spectate was being a little weird. I'm coming up. Keep going. You're doing a great job. I'm getting there.
Well, there's not much to tell you right now. So here's the thing. Brewski's out of gas, but he's got a 5/5, a 3/3, a 5/6, a 2/1, a 2/3, and a 2/3 on board. And JR Juggernaut has a 1/2.
Oh, okay. Here we go. I'm here.
That's it.
We're live.
Swashbuckler comes down looking for anything. Claw is not what he was looking for, to say the least. And JR Juggernaut gives up. That was game 1 on that spot right there. Looked very much like a standard tempo rogue against the buzzsaw that is aggro druid, which is not a surprise to us. There's no healing in that rogue in any way, shape, or form, unless you can find it with Swashbuckler. And while there's tools in Tempo Rogue's spot to kind of take the board back, it really needs to win the board early. It can almost never lose it.
Exactly. I 100% agree. I think Aggro Druid is a really hard matchup for Tempo Rogue if you don't draw, your backstabs and your agents and are able to just continuously clear the board and keep that pace, because you don't really have any hard removal. And if they just get their board and their buffs, they can really sweep you fast.
Yeah, they absolutely can. And that's why we don't necessarily see Aggro Druid a lot on ladder, because it is polarizing. I mean, one board clear and you're done, unless you have Living Mana sitting down there. And even then, you drop Living Mana and then Psychic Stream, comes out and just
which is horrible.
You cry in a corner with that deck. So Brewski, hats off to him. We can see why he banned that priest, I think, right now, and a risky choice maybe. He brought out that Aggro Druid. Do you think he started with that knowing it might have been his weakest deck? Which a lot of people play in Conquest. I see Kolento play that way. They will start with their weakest deck and just play until it wins, knowing their other decks are probably that good.
Yeah, I actually have a similar way of doing it with Conquest too. I like to start with the deck that I'm with, because I feel like I'll be able to come back with my stronger decks.
Yeah, and already looking like a pretty decent start for JR Juggernaut as he busts out the Jade Druid. And the Jade Druid has that Wild Growth in hand. Branching Path is there. It's obviously Tempo Rogue, so perhaps you keep it just to get some card drawn there. Malfurion the Pestilent, a very strong DK. Do you keep it in this hand?
I don't know. Let me. We have Wild Growth, and he kept the Branching Paths. I don't know if I necessarily agree with keeping the Branching Paths here, but he does have his ramp, so that's good. And let's look over at
a very bad start for Brewski so far. I mean, he's got the Quarter Creeper there.
Not looking too hot.
He's got Bone Mare and Tar Creeper. He really wants to draw a Pirate, and he wants to draw it soon. Meanwhile, Juggernaut, he coins out Wild Growth, leaving him for that Jade Blossom, which is going to be great. Swashbuckler eventually gets into Brewski's hand, but he's gonna beef up that weapon, knowing he's probably going to drop the Tar Creeper. Maybe he will drop the Swashbuckler and look for something, because he needs to put minions on the board. He needs to put pressure on right now.
Well, there's the pressure.
There's the pressure. The Keleseth.
You're good at Rogue, folks. You find Prince Keleseth.
That's the riveting analysis from Steffi. Steffi,
I got
Steffi. Yeah, what's your thoughts on this matchup? Well, obviously, draw Keleseth.
Done. Easy.
And look at that. He goes from a terrible hand on turn 1 and 2 to turn 3, all of a sudden having a 3/3 patches on board. And look at Juggernaut's hand. I am really interested in this hand. This hand has Ironwood Golem. This hand has Wrath. This hand has Fandral Staghelm and Arcane Tyrant. This also has Jades in it. What the hell is going on with this deck?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I have seen variants of this deck floating around, though. But I don't know. He didn't have... I don't know if I agree with keeping Branching Paths. I felt like that might have been just a little bit slow against Rogue. And I think that could have been a better card in his hand. But yeah, we're going to see the Fandral Wrath here so he can draw and at least do a little bit of damage. And I mean, from his eyes, the Fandral isn't going to die. And a lot of players, when they see Fandral, they freak out and they're like, oh, I need to remove it right away. That was also a pretty good draw for him, getting Malfurion.
And that's the thing is, though, this Fandral might actually live. That's the spot.
Yeah.
If Fandral lives for one turn, that can be almost like a Keleseth swing for the Druid, right?
Agreed.
If you leave Fandral up once, all it takes is one Nourish, which he has in hand to gain mana, draw cards. Even when he throws that Nourish down, he's going to throw a 3/4/4 down with it at the same time. So here comes a Fate Spinner. That gets dropped down. Obviously, Fate Spinner drawn from the Swashbuckler, so we don't know exactly what he put down there. Not necessarily, an auto pick to pick the AoE. Do you pick the buff here, knowing that your opponent only has one card in hand, or one card on the board?
I think I probably would have picked the buff if it was me personally.
And it was the AoE.
He did the AoE.
Which was obviously a smart play, because that swipe would have obviously just given a lot of gas to Juggernaut. So there comes a 3/3 Swashbuckler that pulls Oh yes, my
Okay.
Anaconda don't want none unless it's Vile Spine Sun. So this one's going to come down. Obviously, that's going to take out the Fandral Staghelm. Here comes a free corridor creeper. Board back to Brewski's side, but Juggernaut with some options here with now a second spreading plague. If you're sitting here and you're a Juggernaut, Steffi, the 4/4 is going to trade in. Are you just playing full control? Are you just trying to exhaust Brewski of his resources, or do you think you can win the value game knowing that you do have Jades?
So his Jades are pretty small right now for him being on his turn 10. I do foresee this being one of those games where you just kind of have to think about the long run. I don't disagree with what he's doing here because he's really just trying to survive. Part of me still felt like Malfurion a few turns back might have been the better play, but I understand why he did the nerf. He wanted to get that ramp, which makes sense to me too.
It's true. He's got a taunt sitting there right now, so Malfurion could come down and make a couple of poisonous minions if he wants to right there. There's still a little bit of gas in Brewski's hand there. He does not have an Elven Minstrel yet for draws, so there's going to be a couple walls of taunts coming up. There's going to be the opportunity for Juggernaut to stay alive and exhaust his resources, even though he's got a 9/6, a 5/6, and a 5/5 staring him right down. So here comes the branching pass right now. It's going to be interesting to see if he chooses attack, or if he chooses draw, or if he chooses armor. He does choose attack for the first one, and he chooses attack for the second one. So this 6/1, gonna have some fun. That's a great value trade right there. And then he's got this 4/2. Do you push face with the 4/2? You hit it in and just put your face into that 5/5. Do you agree with that play? Just to start removing minions that you could.
I don't hate the trades. His hand's looking a little questionable though. I feel really bad that he has double spreading plague. You could argue the not trading because he has double spreading plague to kind of help get some value off of them at least, because right now they're dead in his hand. They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of confused why he hasn't Malfurion yet. I feel like last turn he could have done the equivalent trades, or he would have been able to if he did play Malfurion. So
knowing that you've seen the double Keleseth, if you play the DK whenever you play it, are you just still putting up those taunts, or do you bring up the poisons thinking that you can destroy some minions? That said, you haven't seen any backstabs yet, so putting 2 poisonous minions up could be a huge risk that might pay off though.
It could pay off. I probably would be hesitant because I haven't seen any backstabs or agents or anything like that. Granted, he only has 2 cards in hand, and he would have had the taunt up when he did play it. So it might have seemed like to make sense at the time. I'm pretty sure he should be playing it right now though, because he could clear most of this board if he does Malfurion. So I'm curious to see. He'll probably draw first though with the Wild Growth just to see if he gets anything better. But Malfurion.
But you could, at that same point, you could also, instead of drawing, knowing that you have those taunts up, you could play the DK, and you could have gone to the 4/3, but instead he's going to take the face damage of that 5/1, take himself down to 11 health, and bring out the Death Knight. We're going to assume taunts are going to come up right here to help keep him alive, and they do.
That's good. That's good for him. I understand why he decided to kill it, because Shadow Step, the second Shadow Step in his deck, he probably didn't want Brewski to bring that back and then just be able to get a free kill on something else. Does that make sense to me?
And basically for Brewski, when you look at this, I mean, you're waiting for the Minstrel. You need that Minstrel. This is, it's why Tempo Rogue is now considered basically a tempo deck and not an aggro deck, because it has the ability to get the gas. You just need to draw that one card, which is why he's held on to this backstab, which is why you hold on to a Firefly. You need those combo cards that are ever so important. This is what makes Rogue a little bit wonky in that aspect, and the fact that, you have that 4-mana minion, but you can't play him till 5 many times. You have to keep those one things. It can make Rogue awkward to play, but it can still, in the way that it plays somewhat awkwardly, it can also pull some amazing things out of its butt and can pull out some wins in spots that you never thought could win in the first place.
You never know when you're going to need them, especially when your deck kind of surrounds itself to comboing cards. So Brewski, his hand's looking a little dry now. I feel like, he's starting to run out of steam. Granted, he could top deck anything that could really help him, like another Bone or Creeper or anything big, to really just start putting the pressure on, because Juggernaut's Jays are still really, really small. They're only at a 4/4.
Yeah, but at the same time, Brewski's got no heal, and so he's thinking about taking out this 3/6, which will take him down to 12 health. He is going to backstab it, knowing he does have that 1 mana minion to help with the combo piece right there. So he's going to try to leave as many minions on board as he possibly can. He's going to drop a 5/5 down, that double Keleseth, doing work, providing value, but Juggernaut, he's not going to push lethal at any point, although that Aya is a great pickup. He's got plenty of defensive tools here, but he also is at 12 health, and he's staring down 2 5/5s, a 3/3, and a lot of other funky stuff here. So he's probably going to drop the Spreading Plague, trade into that Anaconda, hope it's not a Deathwing, which I don't think it would be. Why would you ever run that in Tempo Rogue in the first place? But he's got plenty of removal at his disposal here.
Yeah, this was I felt like this was a more like a easier turn for Juggernaut. It was pretty clear, and he's doing a good job of really just trying to get that board control back and stabilize. And the taunts are really important.
Yeah, you look at the Shadow Step right there. Not the card you want to draw late in the game. That's something that you want with your Keleseth. That's something you want even with your Fireflies to give you some early combos and stuff. That's what you really want there. But the Aya, maybe the pickup of the game here. The Aya might be the thing that seals it here for Juggernaut.
Yeah, that's a strong card. That's 10 damage right there. But that's a good pickup for Brewski. And why we hold our combo pieces.
That's not too shabby right there.
But it's just not enough.
It's just not enough. And there goes Brewski. He gives up. So now there you have it. Juggernaut's Druid comes up. Interesting play right there from Brewski. He goes straight to the Rogue there, which means that he's holding back the Priest. Obviously, because he probably just thinks that's his best deck and he can kind of protect against it. The Rogue doesn't do what he wanted it to do. Instead, the Druid of JR Juggernaut, instead of bringing aggro, he brought the Jades and brought that very interesting iteration of Jade, which ended up doing the trick there. Jade Druid, people say it's weak against aggro, but it got a lot of tools. And we saw from, once Mr. Yagut kind of crafted that one Jade deck that was kind of built to beat both Priest and protect itself against aggro, it's no slouch now anymore. Even with the nerf of Spreading Plague and things like that, it got a lot of tools to deal with aggro.
It really does. And that's why you're seeing it everywhere, or it's really starting to blossom. And I felt like I was looking at the ranks for this week, and a lot more people are bringing Druid as well. So I definitely think that people are picking up on this bandwagon, that Druid is still very competitive, and it's a strong class that it can be challenging to play against.
And now we have Warlock against Priest. This is the matchup we were talking about. These are the two big decks here. And so I see Void Lords and Mistress of Mixtures. I see on this end, I see Divine Spirit Inner Fire. It is that Dragon Priest that Brewski is bringing. He's bringing the Divine Spirit Inner Fire Dragon Priest up against, I see Plated Beetles, and I see, Kobold Librarian and Mistress of Mixtures, but I do see a Plated Beetle, which leads me to hint that this might be the old school, very, very heavy control Warlock that might just pull it off against Priest.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a good one. Maybe we'll even see a Zoth thrown in there too. I know some people are running Zoth in theirs as well, so who knows? I'm excited to see what they decided to put into their decks.
And now we look here. Plated Beetle comes down. A good 1-2 start already from Juggernaut. Into the fact that you're going up against Divine Spirit Inner Fire, which he doesn't necessarily know yet. He's probably still trying to evaluate. It could be anything right now if you're a Jared Juggernaut. You're trying to evaluate what your opponent has at this point. Skulking Geist comes down. That was probably the spot to think against Druid right there, to open your protection against the Jades. And now Mistress of Mixtures comes down. Decent boards there. Brewski still able to draw cards if he wants to, and it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do, knowing that this Control Warlock does not apply a lot of pressure.
Yes, and I actually really like that he's taking this time to draw and build up his hand, because Juggernaut is probably just assuming that it's Rizaka's Priest. He has no idea what he's playing against right now, so I think that's pretty smart for Brewski to try to get that leverage and really get his hand where he wants it to be, to go in.
And also knowing that you're against Control, and knowing the bans that have happened already. Here comes a big Twilight Drake, the 410, the max you can do. This is important to the fact that Juggernaut, here comes the lackey down here, but Juggernaut wants to get this Rin going because Brewski's drawn a lot of cards. It really has drawn a lot of cards. Already 19 cards left in Brewski's deck right now. So that Rin takes some time to get going. And if Brewski draws enough cards at this point, it's not going to be fun. Uh-oh.
I think this is
we just have the full combo, don't we?
He just has lethal.
That's just 40 into another 40.
A casual 40 turn 5, no big deal.
It's like I'm in the Tavern Brawl, man.
Feels so bad, man.
I did this in Tavern Brawl like 17 times right now. But it's a lot easier to do it in the Tavern Brawl. Brewski just did it right away.
He did. He made it look easy. Like, I want to draw like that. Easy.
Oh, man. Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, Dragon Priest. I almost hate it. I almost hate to go against it as much as I hate going against Big Priest. Because sometimes there's just... If you can't remove every single minion they put down, every minion has the opportunity to just kill you in one turn.
I agree. I'm actually interested to see if Juggernaut decides to keep with the Rogue. I think personally I would just stick with Warlock and then end it with the Rogue Mirror, assuming that you're going to win that game. Yeah. What do you think?
That's a tough one, man. The Rogue Mirror, you want to save that for the end. I'm looking at what this is. I really think this Warlock has a good chance against that Tempo Rogue.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think the way that this thing is spec'd, the way it is, you've got healing, you've got removal. That deck already, I mean, we knew that Warlock has trouble with priests of many different colors. So perhaps you just go to that Warlock, get priest out of the way, and just hope that you can just make sure that Rogue does not win. Is a thing. In fact, the tempo decks. Now, do you think maybe a card or two in his Rogue deck that will give him the edge in the mirror? If you know you were going in a Tempo Rogue mirror, what is there a card that you would tech in, and what would you take out?
I think the build for the Tempo Rogue deck that we see floating around is pretty strong. And I think it's really hard actually to make those changes to it because every single card essentially does something really important to make the deck work the way that it's supposed to. I'm curious to see, maybe you don't run silences because really the only thing that you're concerned about silencing is something that gets boned. But that's tough.
Yeah, I see. I've seen the iterations. The Lich King variation is out there, but usually that's for priest. There's a few other spots in there that you could tech a card or two in a certain spot. It's such a refined deck now that it's really hard to kind of think where you would put something in to kind of tech against one spot or the other. Maybe it'd be something of just simply putting a Galaka crawler or two into your deck.
Well, you can't do Galaka though because you're running Kalisov.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. No, but that's the thing is that a lot of people I've seen take Keleseth out, and then also you throw saps, you can throw eviscerates, you can throw those two mana minions in there, and as long as your opponent doesn't do what everyone should do and find that Keleseth, those 2 mana cards in Rogue are super powerful. So if you sacrifice the Keleseth, bring the 2 mana cards back in, that could give you the edge in the mirror.
I agree, and I think a lot of people are maybe too scared to try that because everybody thinks that drawing Keleseth is how you win the deck, but if you know how to use your resources correctly, definitely. I mean, I've won, and I'm sure you have, as many games without it. Let's see what his choices. Oh, okay.
So we see Juggernaut start off. Yeah, we see the Tar Creeper. We see the super anti-aggro tech. Oh God, here comes the Shadow Step. He did it again. He's got double Shadow Steps. He's going to drop it a second time. Are we going to see a third time?
The second one or save it? Okay.
Here comes. It's going to drop all of it down. I guess you need to. You need that value.
Yeah.
You're going up against the controlled deck possibly of this entire set. So now a 3/2, a 2/2. He holds back on the Keleseth for that combo.
I agree with that play.
That's a great idea. Hold off on that Keleseth so that Vilespline is going to kill anything that really drops down here. And all of a sudden, Juggernaut, even though with this massive control deck, he just went up against the nuts, didn't he?
He did. This is gonna be tough. Not impossible, but he's really gonna just have to survive.
Feels bad, man.
Feels bad.
So already an early defile. Normally you want to save that for a bigger board than just that, but you see that's a smart move by Juggernaut. He knows that Keleseth comes down. Oh, what a draw by Brewski. Instead of the Vilespine, he's gonna get this. He's gonna get this Elven Minstrel.
This value.
Look at that value. That is a 4/4 1-mana Swashbuckler. And there it goes, drop down. Please make it Doom or something like that. And it's a Shadow Bolt that comes down. Removal, which is going to be, Juggernaut needs to put up a wall at some point. He needs to put up a wall. This coin Siphon Soul can do some fun stuff for him. I don't think there's any. Are there any 1-mana spells that you tech in on Brewski's side that the Skulking Geist can hit?
No, I don't. This deck isn't running any 1-mana spell, so really that Geist is just kind of a dead card because
just sitting there.
She really is.
Meanwhile,
8/8 fatty, man.
That is some butt strength on that 8/8, man. That is some butt strength, and a 7/4 to go with it. There is Rin, but that's not a great use right now. This Mortal Coil is gonna help, and then that 7/4 and an 8/8. It's probably Siphon Soul time to hit that 8/8, but you're still just staring 7 damage down in the face, going into turn 7, which is the Bone Mare turn. And guess how many stats Bone Mare has?
Another fatty. Oh, look, another fatty.
And now you're in turn 7. You're not even in Twisting Nether range at this point.
This is...
Lesser Amethyst Spellstone comes down. Here comes, what else comes down? A Stonehill Defender, which has the opportunity to choose. I mean, are you just trying to put up a wall of cheap taunts at this point?
Something to help you stay alive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this makes sense. This is what's going to keep him alive, but when he doesn't, it doesn't. Or in his head, not knowing his opponent's hand, but... Boy,
oh boy.
Wow.
That was what we call a nut draw right there.
That was the nuts.
Keleseth seems pretty good.
Just a smidge.
Just slightly good. Just a touch. Just a tad, if you will.
Yes.
So there it is. 3-1. Just like that. 3-1.
Wow.
And Brewski wins over JR Juggernaut 3-1. First, the reasons behind Brewski winning against Juggernaut. I think reason number 1 is Hearthstone.
Yes.
Just pull Keleseth and get to shadow step him at least once in both of your rogue games. Seems good. That was super interesting. At the same point, Brewski, the first Keleseth game did not go well for him because he did not draw his gas. Second game, he not only got to double Keleseth, but he also found the Elven Minstrel. He found the gas that he needed to go up against to control Warlock. What's your thoughts on this matchup?
Had the answers.
Yeah, he had the answers. So, it's 3-1, but it was a mixture of answers and nut draws. What do you think about the choice of Juggernauts right there, bringing that full control Warlock? It betrayed him in a lot of ways. That control, sometimes if control draws bad, aggro can win. At the same point, if aggro draws well, it can still be control. Do you think that this control Warlock has a place in this Conquest format, or did he just go up against a buzzsaw today?
I feel like that's hard. I personally really do like this Warlock deck that Juggernaut was running. I think it's very strong and has potential to do great things. I feel like some of his draws were a little bit weaker, and some of the cards that he has in, I find just a little questionable. That I potentially think could be replaced with something maybe a little bit stronger, but I haven't seen his list, so I'm not 100% sure everything that he's running. I feel like this deck can hold its own against the aggro and tempos. I think he defiled early because he wasn't in any threat of dying, and they don't run those buffs except until turn 7 with Bone Mare, so he would have had a chance to be able to clear. So I felt like that was just a little early. That could have maybe helped him later on, but Brewski did draw really well, and he played his cards really well too. So that was a little rough.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that Defile comment. That Defile card is super valuable to you, especially when you don't have a lot of removal elsewhere. If you don't have Hellfire sitting there, and even if you have Hellfire, if you've seen Keleseth twice, your Hellfire is probably useless at that point.
Exactly.
That's the gnarly thing. So I completely agree with you on the Defile point there. That is possibly your most valuable card against Rogue, because you might just be able to bait them into overextending, and then you can play the math game and try to put things together. So we saw what happened with the Warlock there. Brewski, at the other hand, really brought the aggro, and I will even consider Inner Fire Dragon Priest an aggro deck. Of all the
That
priest
was
decks, that is
crazy.
probably the most aggro one you're playing.
That was nutty.
That was nutty, man. A 40 mana minion. We're sitting there trying to analyze
It was
the
like turn
entire time.
5.
We're trying to analyze the game, and up there is just a bunch of Divine Spirits and Inner Fires. We're not even looking at it. We're just being like, oh, let's talk about how great of Hearthstone players we are. Let's talk about what we would do in this situation. What would we do in this situation? We would die. That
We
is
would
what
be
happen.
dead.
We would be dead. That is
Oh.
what happens, man. So Brewski really going full aggro. I'm even tempted to think that he brought Pirate Warrior in this instance, in this shape or form. He really went aggressive with his decks, and they paid off. What I mean is aggro the way to go in Conquest, and you just have to, control has to draw the nuts to beat you, or at least has to draw well. And if you're going to go up against, if two people are playing against each other and they're both going to draw badly, you would rather be the aggro. Like,
Yeah.
that's your thought on that? Like, so do you go aggro in your lineups? Do you think aggro has the edge? It has the edge in general in Hearthstone, in terms of this Conquest format, in terms of the decks that you bring. Do you think more people are going to start to shift aggro as opposed to sticking with some of these control decks, these more complex decks?
I can see people switching to the more aggressive decks because you kind of said it perfectly. If you draw well with an aggro deck and your opponent can't deal with your board, you just lose so easily. You just get swept, and it feels bad. And I've been seeing different players bringing more aggro decks and talking with players and kind of learning why they brought aggro decks. Like, for example, my rag last meet, Tim or Animor, he brought a whole all aggro lineup, and he completely crushed me with it, and I wasn't expecting it. And so it completely threw me off. And I'm sure that JR Juggernaut is feeling exactly how I felt. He wasn't really expecting this more aggressive lineup. And it could also maybe make you feel a certain way and make you feel play just control the board really fast, which is the defile turn, for example, for Juggernaut, because maybe he was feeling very overwhelmed in that moment and just felt like he needed to deal with it right now. So I like the aggro standpoint. I personally am more of a tempo control player myself. I feel like I play those decks better than I do aggro decks. But I can respect a good aggro deck, and especially when it's played really well.
Yeah. Well, as someone whose only golden class right now is 600 wins with Miracle Rogue, I'm of that same ilk. I like the complexity. I like the more control-y style decks, but aggro, I think, still is king, and aggro still can sneak wins out. That's the thing about it. It can definitely go against you. If your opponent techs the right way, you can go 0-3 real easy. But if I was a newer player to the league, if I was a newer player in general, I would definitely start aggro and then work your way from there.
I agree. I think aggro decks are hard to play. Like, they're not easy decks to play. I feel like they might get that kind of thing where everybody's like, oh, well, anybody can play aggro. That's not true. They're very hard to pilot well, but I think once you get that foundation down and learning about how to utilize your resources, it'll help you more with the control decks, which is even more resource-based, and really analyzing the plays that your opponent's going to make in 2 or 3 turns from then. But I mean, I can respect a good aggro deck because, like I said, I'm still trying to learn how to play those the best, and it feels so bad to get swept by them, but you're always kind of in awe. You're like, well, that just happened.
And at the same point, and that's the thing, Ridiculous Hat says oftentimes, if you think a deck is overpowered, play it. And then you'll realize where its weaknesses are. And then you'll realize that it's not as good as you think. And I'm that same way. I busted open a bunch of aggro decks, especially before Knights of the Frozen Throne came out. I busted, aggro Druid was the deck going on there. And I busted up. I played maybe, I think, 250 games that month with aggro Druid. And I really learned 2 things. 1, I learned what it's really bad against. And 2, I learned how bad I am at Hearthstone all at the exact same time. And I sat there, I was like, oh, great. I made rank 1, not legend. Good to know. And then you get that email together. And then the email from Blizzard comes to you going, here's your win rate against a certain class. You played this many games of Druid. And I go, that's actually more depressing.
They're trying to be like, good job. And you're like, I hate
Any competent player would have hit legend at that point. But I learned, you really learn how aggro has a lot more to it than just me smork face. It has a
Agreed.
lot more. You really have to identify, especially in the mirror matches or even just an aggro mirror match. You really have to identify your role. You have to identify when to push and when to hold back. You have to identify when to overextend and just go for it as opposed to holding back. There's a lot of nuance to aggro that people don't give credit for.
Agreed. I guess it's no joke, and it takes a lot of skill set to be able to play it correctly. Like I feel like we've been saying, and a lot of people overlook that and will just say, "Oh, I'll just play this. It'll be totally fine. It's the easy deck to play," and then they lose with it and just automatically assume that it's bad and that they shouldn't play it. When in reality, they probably just weren't piloting it well because it's not an easy deck to pilot.
Yes. If I'm playing a net deck and I'm doing badly with it, I'm not going to say the deck sucks. I'm going to, you don't point the finger, you point the thumb. That's what it is.
This guy or
You
this
gotta
gal.
say, yeah. Who's got two thumbs and sucks at sucks at control mage? This guy. That's what that is right there. So there it is, 3-1, Brewski over JR Juggernaut. An early win for Thermic Whims, but still, we're going to keep an eye on these two teams going forward for the rest of the week. This is going to be a lot of fun. Steffi, any last thoughts you have about this matchup?
I'm still trying to process that priest game, man.
Right?
Like what? I was not expecting that at all.
At what happened.
No, I think both players more or less played really well, and they did what they thought was best at the time. So I can appreciate and respect what we witnessed today.
We witnessed a 40-40. That's what we witnessed.
Truth.
All right. Who needs the darkness? Who needs the darkness when you have Dragon Priest, right? On turn 5. So there it is, 3-1 Brewski over JR Juggernaut. Of course, stick with us for the rest of the week. We know we had some spectator glitches here, and we had some other things that Twitch was messing around with. We'll get those things figured out. We're going to work on some stuff tonight and tomorrow to make sure that all the streams are top quality going forward, to make sure that everyone can enjoy these awesome THL games and you can see what we see. So make sure to join us tomorrow for Friday Night Fight starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. There's going to be some fun matches that are going to be sitting down there. This has always been fun to kind of spectate and be on the other side instead of really focusing on what we're doing. It is nice to kind of put your mindset into both players and put those together. And Steffi, your analysis on that 40-40 was fantastic. You were an amazing commentary person. I hope you had a lot of fun as much as I did.
Thank you guys for having me on as, a commentator. This has been real.
It's been real. Y'all been great. Everyone's been fantastic.
You're lovely.
Steffi, I'm gonna let you finish. But Oil Rogue was the greatest deck of all time.
You're talking to a rogue player, man.
Exactly.
I love everything rogue.
Thank you. We are now best friends.
Exactly.
So there it is. That is all from us here for Thursday Throwdown. Join us for Friday Night Fight at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And of course, you can join us on Saturday afternoons now afternoons for Salty Saturday as well. There's going to be plenty of other content. Take a look at the website, of course, which is teamhearthleague.com. Click the little button at the top called blog, and you can find out a bunch of interesting articles as well as the names of the teams, and you can look at what's going on there. If you are interested in seeing what is on that website, come visit us on Facebook. Just search Team Hearth League, and you can find our Facebook group from there. With that, this is Brasky and Steffi. Steffi, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, me. Well, you can find me on Twitch. I do stream, and it's under Steffi with those again because you need to be extra. HS.
Absolutely.
Easy. And then you can also find me on Twitter with the same name. I'm at Steffi HS. I'm pretty active on there, so if you guys want to come hang out, your girl will be there.
Hey, and I have been to that stream. It is rambunctious. It is fun. You become correct and get ready with those 40-40s. That's all I'm going to say with that stream right there. Absolutely. If you enjoy, on the opposite side, if you enjoy a good clown fiesta, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Brasky1142. You can find me on Twitter as well at Brasky1142. I'll be streaming up a little bit more here towards the end of the month. I'll have a little bit of break time to play some ridiculous decks and really craft my strategies for Team Tryhard, which is obviously I'm going to be MVP in this season after starting 0-3 real quick. Duh. So
Duh.
with that, we are all done here, but we're not done for the rest of the weekend. So we will see you all Friday for Friday Night Fight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So for Steffi, I'm Brasky. Thank you all so much and have a good night.
Thanks, guys.